Hello, my name is Ethan, and welcome back to another episode of Path of Exile Settlers League 3.25. In this episode, I'm going to be going over my build updates. What did I build update? So first, I'm going to start it off with this beautiful Purity of Elements. So I added Purity of Elements. The way I fit Purity of Elements was removing Purity of Fire and taking the extra reservation on the tree. And then it's also linked with the Enlighten 4 instead of the Purity of Fire. Well, it's actually on the Guardian's Blessing, so it's free, but Haste is on the Enlighten. It's 50% aura is getting Enlightened instead of a 35% Purity of Fire. Okay. And then because I'm full Elemental Ailment immune again with Purity of Elements, so basically I swapped back to it. I removed the Stormshroud and the two 50% avoid jewels, so the Stormshroud making it so if you had 100% avoid shock, you get all elemental ailments, and then I had the two jewels, 50% to avoid being shocked, times 2, 100%, full elemental ailment immune. So I was able to replace all that, so 3 jewels with just the Purity of Elements, and then the jewels I replaced it with are these, so 2 max fire res, another 2 max fire, and another 2 max fire, and so it also had some minion damage, some percent increase max life, and then extra fire, lightning, cold, lightning, and this one had minion LE res. You don't need these, but it's like, well, an extra suffix on the jewel that we could get. The main mods were the max fire, the percent max life, and the minion damage, and you're also able to swap this max resistance with harvest when it isn't fractured. So I ended up getting 6% max fire through the jewels, and I had 7 through the Purity of Fire, so this is basically as good as the Purity of Fire max res, except when you run a map mod of reduced aura effect, now you will keep your... the reduced effect of non-curse auras from skills, you'll keep the max res because it's actually from the jewels and it's not through auras, which is better, so it's more consistent. And then I would, able to gain all that extra percent max life, the extra minion damage, the extra res, so then our reses are disgusting. 197, 230, so I still have too much. It's amazing. And then 215 fire without even having the... Purity of Fire, and if you take this off, we're still at 136. So it's like if you had the case of having reduced effect of the aura, like if you had none, but we would have some effect of it still because we have aura effect in the build, like 30%, 36. So then that was just the Purity of Elements, and then I mentioned the res thing, and so I had this old helmet which was a ton of resistance, cold and lightning, but I had too much resistance, and so I decided to recraft the helmet because I wanted to hit suppress T1. So I bought a Majestic Pelt, got the fractured +2, and then I used Essence of Envy, Deafening Essence of Envy for the Chaos res, and I hit T1 suppress. And the T1 suppress was 14%. I had 14% through the Watcher's Eye by doing 14 suppress while affected by grace. And so with the 14 suppress from the helmet, I didn't need this Watcher's Eye, which means I didn't need grace. And so instead of this Watcher's Eye, I'm able to run this one. So I still have the physical damage reduction with determination, but then I also have cooldown recovery rate of movement skills affected by haste. Because I replaced Grace with Haste, and so I don't need to run Grace. And we have the extra speed from the Haste, and then technically the extra CDR. You don't need this mod, it was just cheap, and then technically I got my phase run down to 2.5 second cooldown with a 2.7 buff duration, so it's a infinite phase run as long as you don't get, reduced or less cooldown recovery rate or less duration of buffs on you or whatever. Buffs expire faster, all that nonsense, but normally this will just work, which is sick. And then, like I say, not needing the Watcher's Eye because of getting the suppress through the helmet. So then we did the Dex helmet to make it the evasion helmet to make it easier to roll the suppress, and I was able to keep just a T3 cold res, and like we still have a great amount of resistances. And then I did for a little bit test Pride. It was just a test, experimental, and at that time, I actually needed the Grace in the build still for this Watcher's Eye for the suppress. I just didn't realize, and so then once we swapped the helmet and we had the suppress through the helmet, and we didn't need the Grace Watcher's Eye, then I could run Pride, but with the comparison of Pride or Haste, I actually have decided to run Haste instead for the extra speed and the attack speed. Technically, Pride would be more damage just in terms of just fizz, like explosion, etc., if you're not worrying about the attack speed or the move speed. But this is also very strong. And I could also technically link Haste with Awaken Generosity, but it's linked in the Enlighten setup, so I don't want to give up the extra. Like, I'd have to link it separately, because then I'm not going to Awaken Generosity, my Determination, and my Vitality, but yeah, you could. And I do want this to also affect me. I think we get like 25% move speed from the Haste. Yeah, it's pretty nice, actually. And then also, a small caveat is so the Spectres, Perfect Blood Demon, this big dude, he actually gives Pride, and so I have a smaller form of Pride on the Perfect Blood Demon Spectre, and that's good for now, to not have to need Pride in general. It is helpful to run Pride, but then in this case we have Haste and Pride. I still have the Pride. And then the Spectres, I actually made a change. So I dropped the 2 Carnage Chieftains, basically. With PoE 2, I was listening to their dev talks, and they talked about body blocking and the size of the minions, and then they talked about how they're actually like squares and rectangles and they're blocks, so the size of the block for the monkeys is huge, and they get stuck the most of any of these specters and minions. They're huge, and they create body blocking and make it tough to go through doorways and stuff. So I was like, well, what if I drop the 2 Carnage Chieftains? So instead, I still have the Perfect Dark Reaper and the Perfect Blood Demon, and then the 2 extra Spectres, I put the Perfect Forest Warrior back in the build, so he's the nearby allies have onslaught, and the culling strike. And then I also added Perfect Warlord. So Perfect Warlord is doing the sharing of endurance charges. So I already have the 4 endurance charges, but technically this one Spectre is stacking all the endurance charges on all the minions, which is actually really powerful if you think about it. Like, my Carnage Chieftain would give 1 frenzy charge every 6 seconds, and this dude is giving 3 endurance charges. Kind of insane, kind of powerful. He also does a leap. He does the sweep. He does a lot of cool shit. I actually enjoy it a lot, and I actually like hearing this sound in the background. So yeah, I actually missed him. Yeah. Technically, instead of the Perfect Warlord, I could also run a Demon Harpy, but this is what I've decided for now, and if I wanted more damage, I guess I could run a Demon Harpy. But the problem with the Demon Harpy is that it's a small cone, and basically if there's multiple targets, it's very unlikely that it will actually hit it on the target you want, even if it was up all the time. It's just not covering the full screen, so it can't be consistent. It can't be reliable, unfortunately. But this swap is really fun, really huge, and I really like it. The swap to Purity of Elements over Stormshroud is sick. The getting the max resistance through jewels, which is new instead of Purity of Fire, is also really sick. And this reminds me of that which was taken, because we could roll max fire res on that jewel, and I think it also had suppress, which kind of also shows me like suppress is really tough to get. So when we could get the suppress through the gear, it was really valuable because of what we could save of not needing that Watcher's Eye, and like where we could go crazier on a Watcher's Eye now. It was basically that I didn't want to spend a lot on committing on a Watcher's Eye with my changed auras. Yeah. There are some nice ones, though, with the Purity of Elements and the Determination. It's just, they're quite expensive, is my main point. And like I think these changes are huge. Like I say, big move speed bonus. The benefit of the purity of elements also over the Stormshroud is that technically the Stormshroud, no matter what, doesn't apply to your minions, but there's actually like a radius on this purity of elements, so sometimes my minions will also be immune to elemental ailments. Not always, because they can outrange the aura, but when it works, they're immune, which is a benefit over the other one. And that's similar with haste. The pride would just be like a buff making the enemy take more physical damage, but haste actually makes my minions move faster too and attack faster, so it makes them clear faster and reposition faster, and it like actually feels more smooth rather than just being more DPS. Yeah, it feels really good all around. So yeah, those are all my build updates. Those are my build changes. Min-maxing. I love this part. It's so fun. Basically doing the same things, but with different ways of doing it and potentially improving the build. Hope you guys did enjoy. I hope you guys like the changes. Hope you guys like the updates. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.